Hello there. This is Eric Elliott, and this is Honest Klaud. I'm here with my guest, Brian Fennessey. Um, why don't you speak a little bit about yourself, Brian?
Well, my name is Brian. I'm a big Star Wars nerd. Have been ever since I was a little kid.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I'm a dad. I met Eric through some of our mutuals that we would see on around the internet and Twitterverse, and I'm really happy to be here. Happy to be a guest.
Yeah, I would say the bulk of most of the time that we will like pass each other would be obviously, well, first through the streaming Star Wars network, and then it would be like text, Twitter, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not
Um,
dropping plugs for them on your show though. I'll let you do that.
I'm more than willing to shill for the Shill King
Yeah.
and Pete Pletzer. Um, I'm a big fan of the channel. Uh, like I think way more people should like at least check them out. So I'm not saying you have to be like a loyal follower, but at least check them out. And I leave y'all a playlist of every time I appear
Yeah.
on the channel, and
Yep.
I am the crown
I say
king
you
of
are the
appearances.
undisputed king of the ring at this point, I think.
Yeah, like I was real close with a previous guest I've had up here, Angry Taste Cakes, who I do appreciate, and I'm not doing shit on him, but I did beat his record.
Yeah.
And that was a wild time coming. That was several months of just seeing who's going
Yeah.
to falter there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so shout out to Tasty Cakes, real name Lloyd, if you don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is our third time doing an episode. It's
Yes.
just this is the only one that will actually be
Yes.
seen by the people.
Yes. Third time's a charm we're hoping for.
Yeah, and don't worry, I did not repeat any of the shitos that we talked about those two times.
Okay.
I pushed those
I'm.
way far
Mhm.
into the periphery. Even if you were to see it again, you probably may have forget the name by that point, or I'm probably gonna have a different guest.
Okay.
Because I have hundreds upon hundreds of random glut shitos
Yeah.
to get through. So I'm good on that front.
Good.
Um,
There are so many,
yes, there
and
are.
there's so many different levels. It's like which level of Dante's hell is which level of George's Glupshido.
Yeah, like most people know the movies, but you
Yeah.
also got TV shows, you got the video games. I don't do comics and novels
Mhm.
because I know I'm going to start losing way too many people
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, like I'll do. Um, well, here's the glove shooter, but it's not the glove shooter of the day. Muffalump.
I know it, but I just can't.
Okay, so
I know it. I'm gonna
before
need your help though with that.
Uh, before, during, and shortly after the release of Phantom Menace, Pepsi got a deal with Lucasfilm and Fox
Yes.
Studios. So they created a character. ILM created an alien character to sell Star Wars and Pepsi to the
Mhm.
audience. And it was just like this weird, bug-eyed, weird creature with a pot belly and a shirt that's too small for him, and he would keep saying "Oh joy" when he would drink Pepsi. He seemed to be kind of an indictment of like a stereotype of how someone may have seen Star Wars fans because
Mhm.
he's supposed to be like living in his parents' attic.
Yeah.
He's overweight. He just consumes Pepsi and Star Wars, and that's it.
Mhm.
I was just like, what is the real idea behind this?
Still slightly better than Coca Cola and Mac and Me though.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least Phantom Menace we know was a hit. Mac and Me
Yes.
was not a hit. It was
Was it
Brian's
that?
Hotels of a much better movie.
That was one of my brother's favorite movies when we were kids, and it was so like I could see the contempt on my parents' face when he would bring up that he wanted to when he would take out the videotape, and just like the hatred that my father had for that
Mm.
show, for that movie.
I, I do not envy, you know, Papa Fennessey dealing
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. No.
Um, Now, you're saying that, well, I know a little bit, but my audience, is new to you for the most part, unless they have seen your appearances on SSW Network.
Hmm.
Like, how did you get into Star Wars, and how has that evolved since then?
Well, I grew up after. Well, not after the movies came out. I was just real young. I was born in 1980, so I was. I mean, I may have seen Return of the Jedi in theater. I don't remember. My parents don't remember.
You've
My
been three.
first,
That's very hard to try to
yeah,
recover memories from that far.
yeah. But my first memory of Star Wars is different than most, just because of my age, and
Hmm.
that is Caravan of Courage. That was my first Star Wars,
Hmm.
and my parents. I think he
What defender of
recorded
that
it.
movie?
I'm a huge defender of that movie. Make Sindel Tuani canon, please. I hope that she has a cameo in Ahsoka coming up. I'm
Yeah,
always hoping
Mace
out.
or Sindel, either
Yeah.
one
Either
would
well,
be fine. If
yeah.
he can
Well,
make Dash Rendar canon
there you go.
in a book, why not Mace 20? I'm just saying.
Why not? I mean, she kept going in Legends. She was like a journalist and stuff like that. But then here we are. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll find out that Dave was a random big Sindel fan like me.
Or John Favreau,
Yeah.
maybe.
So it was all, I was of that age that, what, Ewoks were awesome. I watched the TV show. I haven't watched it since it came to
Or
Disney
the cartoon?
Plus. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we had all me and my brothers had all the Ewok figures. We were all in on Ewoks. We were of that age. You know,
Mhm.
some of the people older than me, this is like that same group of people that didn't like Return of the Jedi because, Ewoks were made for kids.
Mhm.
The same way that a generation did, when the prequel movies came out. And, they didn't like whether it be Jar Jar or, in the Phantom Menace, young Anakin, because the Phantom Menace was very kiddie.
Mhm.
It was designed for kids. Star Wars, when it comes down to it, is made for kids.
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back, maybe not as much, but
I would say that Empire, even though it has, the jury ending, there's
yeah,
still a lot of
yeah, it's not
goofy
not
parts.
made for kids.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just like, you're going to tell me that the Ugnaughts were not made for kids?
Oh, absolutely. And Tauntauns, come on, it's
Yeah, yeah. And those are two sounds in Star Wars I do not like. Is the Ugnaughts and the Tauntauns. I don't like it. I just don't.
all
Don't get
right.
me wrong. I really enjoy that movie.
Okay.
There's two things I'm just like, I could do without the way they produce those noises.
All
It's
right.
grating to me personally. But yeah, like even with that, like I'm not gonna say someone else that likes that is bad, and I think like I mentioned on SSW Network is that there was fans that saw the original movies when they were kids that passed down this notion of entitlement
Yeah.
that they passed down to their kids because a lot of those kids became the prequel era kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they grew up on, and they felt like they had to defend their movies that they love,
Yeah.
because a lot of older fans crapped on practically anything from the prequels
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't cool to like the prequels until like
Yeah.
around 2012.
I was kind of like, and like I said, I'm just of that age. I was in my early 20s. Uh, I I was, or I was 18 when Phantom Menace came out. I
Mhm.
loved Phantom Menace. I just thought it was so, just the visuals of it. The story is something else. I mean, it is what it is.
Mhm.
I wasn't the biggest fan, and to this day, I'll still say that Attack of the Clones is my least favorite. I know that there are a lot of people that it is their absolute favorite movie.
Mhm.
I love the clones. I love the whole, but the beginnings of that love story, the way that it was filmed in the dialogue, it was just it. as someone who was, 22 years old,
Mhm.
it just kind of dragged me out of it to the point that, and like I said, it was all just, I was of that age. I didn't even see Revenge of the Sith in the movie theater. It's the only movie that I have never seen in the theater at this point.
Hmm. But of
Because
course, people
of the
watch it subsequently.
yeah.
Yeah.
So unless they re-release it somewhere locally,
Hmm.
hopefully, if not,
I mean, it was weird. They only did the 3D release of Phantom Menace,
yeah,
that was the only one from the prequel movies that they did.
yeah, and
Which I was like, why is that one?
yeah. I mean, I thought I mean, I get to a point why they would do that just because of
Yeah, money.
well, money, but the pod racing scene and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That looks awesome in 3D. It's a lot
Hmm.
better than the old like Jaws 3D was.
But yeah, and that's another reason. Then defending is like one of the reasons why right now some of the most toxic figures when it comes to the Star Wars fandom are prequel era kids, guys that are between around 20 to 30.
Yeah.
Like they dominate currently.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, a lot of them still love original trilogy, and they'll make it seem like in retrospect every idea George Lucas ever had was good because Disney's so bad or something like
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
It's absurd fiction that they make for themselves so they can build a narrative. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And I'm not gonna say like every decision from Disney or whoever's working on projects I agree with. I mean, I have a lot of personal issues with Rise of Skywalker, but I would never want it to be uh, decanonized
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because even though I do not. I'm not obsessed with that movie, and I have issues, I have gripes. It means something to so many people.
Yeah.
This is an IP, a franchise, and stories that mean so much to people. And it literally, it has. Well, I don't say the power, but it's helped people through dark times.
Yeah.
These stories help people get over being abused.
Mm-hmm.
Prevent them from committing suicide. It's
Mm-hmm.
way deeper than just it's the blockbuster thing.
Yeah. It's and some things like you said with Rise of Skywalker, if you don't like it, you can just watch it as a silly popcorn flick because you can sit there and just enjoy it without going too deep into the story. I mean, we all tend to just because of who we are and how intertwined Star Wars is in some of our lives. But you don't have to be that way. If you don't like Rise of Skywalker has its issues, whether it be how it changed some of the characters,
Yeah.
some of the stuff that it just didn't make sense with some of the previous movies. But you know what? If you just sit down and watch it and just take it in for what it is, it's an enjoyable movie if you don't overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I look at it.
It maximizes in fun, not in being intellectual.
Yeah.
And that's not an inherently bad thing. I'm just like there's plenty of movies that do not focus on being smart, but people love them to death. To me, there's no movie in the Fast and Furious franchise that's really a smart movie.
Okay.
It's made for spectacle. It's made for fun. Just look, cars crash into each other. Oh, look, the Rock is here.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. Oh, look, there's a sexy lady. It's not going highbrow of really. It's not focusing on truly challenging the characters. It's just
obviously when street racers become like superheroes, like spies and stuff.
Yeah, go to the moon.
It's just out there. But, there's still fun movies to watch. We get to watch cars. You get to watch cars do crazy things and stuff blows up. Stuff blowing up is always going to be fun to watch.
Very much, and that is basically the lifeblood of Michael Bay's career.
Yeah,
and he does fun things. He's also made movies that are pretty dumb.
Yeah, but they're
Uh,
entertaining.
yeah, like he's like, don't go in with your brain,
Yeah.
go in with your soul.
Hmm. Go for the
Uh,
pretty pictures.
um, now, do you have any plans when it comes to uh, presenting yourself more online? Like, would you ever decide to make a channel or a podcast or anything like that?
I would, but that's a couple years off if I were to do that, just because of um, like my family and career. I just don't
Yeah.
have the time that I would need to devote to that. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens in 3 or 4 years from now, and we'll see what's going on, and we'll revisit it at that point. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, right now I'm happy with what's going on. I'm happy to be like lurking in a chat room, or even coming on here talking with you, coming on talking with any other people. But we'll see what the future brings. But
Mm-hmm.
for right now, it's probably not in the cards for a few years.
Yeah. Now, like, even though some of my favorite projects
Mm-hmm.
from Star Wars franchise have been in the Disney era,
Mm-hmm.
um, that being said, I do not trust Disney with a lot of things because they are a corporation,
Yeah.
and what they're doing in like other big studios like Warner Brothers,
Mm-hmm.
Universal, even Netflix,
Yeah.
what they are doing to these writers and actors should like be nothing else other than seen as criminal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like these people depend on their hard work to make sure that they can put food on the table, the roof over their families' heads,
Yeah.
um, that their security will not be violated by you
Mm-hmm.
trying to
Yeah.
hold on to their physical lightness for eternity. You know, like these should be no brainers.
Yeah.
But you still have people that want clicks to misrepresent
Mm-hmm.
what's going on and make it seem like, oh, these writers, they're just whining. If they
No.
wanted to be paid, you need to write better. I'm just like,
No.
it
Because
really shows
listen,
they know nothing about how the industry actually works.
yeah, like I'm a union member. Obviously not in. I'm not in the entertainment business, but collective bargaining is where you want to go. No one that is in a union wants to be on strike, because you know what happens when you're on strike?
You
You're
get
not
hungry.
getting paid.
Yeah.
You know, these people are like giving up their livelihood right now. They're out there striking, but you know what? There's no income coming in. If they have family, there's nothing coming in for that. They're literally hoping that some of these charities and these funds are kind of helping them to get along. And that's the sacrifice that these people are going through, just to hope that the studios will come back and make it so they can make a decent wage for themselves, and to be able to raise a family. And because most of the actors and writers,
Regular
is
people.
more so the writers, they're living in two of the most expensive cities in the world to live in, whether it be
Yeah, New
Los
York and Los
Angeles or New
Angeles.
York.
Yeah.
And you can't get what anyone throughout the rest of the country don't realize is, like, all the whether it be the networks or the studios have places in New York and Los Angeles. A lot of them do some filming down in like Georgia and other random places, but they don't have full studios down there. They're still working out of those two main places. So if you're
Even if
not
you, even if
there,
you
you're not
record in
working.
there, even if you do recording in there, a lot of the editing and a lot of the
Yeah.
extracurricular production happens in
Yeah.
the two big cities.
Absolutely.
So like obviously Atlanta has like a big
Yeah.
filming chapter, and that's where we get a lot of the Marvel projects,
Mm-hmm.
for filming because
Yeah. AMC
it's
was always
wider.
big for down there. Yeah. But they're not
And Tyler Perry
doing,
movies.
yes, but they're not being necessarily written and doing post production and stuff there. That stuff is either happening mostly in LA.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not that many studios even in New York. You have like Silver Cup in Queens. Netflix is building one on the old Fort Monmouth property in New Jersey. There's one, someone just built one in Jersey City, but there's nowhere near the amount of studio and stuff in New York as there is in Los Angeles. New York is mostly going to be the writers for the TV shows. There's a lot more TV shows that are filmed in New York than movies for the most part. Most of that stuff, for the most part, there's no backlots or anything like that in New York. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just pay the people. You know, these
Well, I mean,
corporations
lot
are
of
making
television takes
billions.
A lot of television takes place in a big city.
Yeah.
So you can shoot it in New York. You just have to block off certain areas and work with contractors to make sure that's done. But yeah, like you're just mentioning all these funds and charities. If someone's listening and they have disposable money that they can give away, do it to that. Hell, if you are just like I've mentioned before, I'm just like, we are dealing with these stricken companies who are still releasing their leftover projects, the ones that they still have already done. Like, they're not starting anything new because they don't have anyone that's working for them right now, and they're still making a buck off their work and not giving them the money during this time. Like, it's still not. That's why I say that if you, and I'm saying you specifically, but I said this before, I'm just like, if you feel comfortable, pirate it. Whose play are you taking away from? A corporation? We know it's not going to the writers. We know it's not going to the actors. I'm just like, this is more of any time where I can't see it as like, oh, you are the bad guy here. Like, the bad guy is David Zaslav. The bad guy is Bob Iger. Yeah. Those are the bad guys in this situation. They are treating all these people that make their work where they basically do nothing as their serfs.
Yeah.
They are the kings and they are the feudal serfs. They have to service them. And Bob Iger makes a average writer's pay in a year in one day.
Yeah.
And he's saying that it's unrealistic to give these writers and actors what they're worth. I'm just like, he's a billionaire, and all these writers and actors collectively is asking for is a minimum of $420 million.
Yeah.
He could sneeze that amount of money.
Yep.
And this is one of the reasons why I commend an actor / obviously wrestler, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And I hope he will make other big names like do the same, in solidarity and like appreciation. There's like, because who hates The Rock? I mean, other than some like very odd, wrestling fans, but practically everyone in the world at least appreciates.
Just like the Academy of Motion Pictures, probably, because The Rock ain't never getting an Oscar.
No, but I don't think he was ever trying to get an Oscar. To be honest, I think there's some roles he tried to go a little more serious, not just trying to be the look. I got muscles and I'm charismatic.
Yeah,
but that's his bread and butter. He's had that as his thing since the Mummy franchise. But yeah, shout out to Dwayne. Now, one reason I wanted to caveat our position and the idea is like, if you want to give something to these people, please do. Yeah. If you can afford it, like, I know times are tough for a lot of people. Like, groceries are more expensive. We have heat waves that are literally killing off poor people that have to work outside, or homeless people.
Yep.
There's still a lot of income inequality in multiple fronts. Like, a lot of people are dealing with a lot of economic pressure. I can understand if you just like, I don't know if I can afford it this time. You don't have to feel bad. If you can't give fiscal money, just spread the word and just show a solidarity. That's it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, one of the reasons I bring that up is just because, like, well, I wanted to gush about an idea that we will probably, likely be in the pipeline after the strike is over. I don't know how long it's going to last, but Don Glover and his brother
Yes.
are set up to be the writers of the new Lando series, and obviously
Hmm.
Don Glover played him in Solo, so he's
Yes.
returning to the role. Because Billy D is way too old, but we still love him. um,
And I think everyone can agree we'd much rather have Donald Glover do it than a de-aged Billy D.
that would be really like that. That would be unnerving to try to pull off for like a
Yeah.
6 episode miniseries.
Yeah. I mean, as much as we all love Billy D. Williams, it's just
Yeah, and
it.
like it's not just
There is.
his face; like he moves not as fast as he used to.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that uncanny valley there that, as great as Dial of Destiny even was,
Hmm.
it's weird when you watch that and you see younger Harrison Ford there because it just doesn't look right because he's 80 years old.
Yeah, I was telling Jeff, I'm just like, you know, I appreciate a lot of the storytelling they do
Yeah.
with the DH segment, but I'm like, was it worth the price tag of how much it was to make this movie?
Yeah.
Like, it was insane. Like, the starting estimate is 295 million,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, it could be way higher than that. We don't know.
Mm-hmm. And it's not that he didn't look realistic. He looks absolutely amazing in that.
For the most part, yeah.
It's just
I'll say
that,
half of it is way too uncanny valley.
yeah, but I think a lot of it nowadays is just like he's not that. He he doesn't look like that. That's always going to be in the back of your head. Like if it was someone like when you would see if all of a sudden they redid the VFX on Rogue One nowadays.
With
And
Tarkin.
yeah, if you saw Peter Cushing and they redid that, that's how everyone knows him. And it was not his last role, but he was later on in life. To see him exactly like that wouldn't be as jarring as seeing someone that you may have seen on the red carpet or even 5 minutes later in the movie
Well,
being significantly older.
I see. I've been in the presence of people that watch Rogue One and they like basically know nothing about Star Wars.
Yeah.
They haven't even seen New Hope. They saw Rogue One, and even they're like, is he really there? Like
Yeah.
even they. So I don't think it's exclusively that we have prior knowledge.
Yeah. No, I
Uh,
mean, if they did that with the effects that they have nowadays, like if they did that update, even though 6 years or 7 years been since Rogue One, something like that. It was 2016, I think.
Stop thinking too hard.
Yeah.
You're gonna make yourself feel older.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks. But even just the amount that the ability to do that, uh, like virtual face swapping that they could do nowadays, I'm sure if they did Rogue One today, it would look Peter Cushing would look a bit better and a little more realistic.
Yeah, because it's a constantly evolving
Yeah.
uh, thing. Because like the first time I saw it, uh, and back then we were blown away, was in X-Men 3. They de-aged Sarah McKellen and Patrick Stewart
Yeah.
for a scene that takes place with young Jean. But you look at back on it now, it's like, looks a little too gummy.
Yeah.
But it's basically the same technology, and from then, like it just gets better and better for the most part.
Yeah.
Some studios, some projects, they didn't have the time, or they're straining their visual effects artists too much.
Mm-hmm.
That's another group that should be
Oh, absolutely.
joining WGA and SAG. Is
Even
the
if
visual effects artists.
I'm just kind of amazed that they haven't formed their own.
They have a union, but it's nowhere near the size.
Yeah,
It has nowhere near the traction.
but it's still, and it's also not multiple studios. You'll get like from what I say, it's like one studio will have a union, but the guys at ILM are not in the same union as the guys at Weta.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not until you kind of anything with unions, it's numbers. You need that huge numbers to have that influence to be able to push back against whether it be a corporation or whoever you're working for.
Yeah, because I'm just like, and one thing that if the visual effects artist join, or in consolidation with their own big union,
Yeah.
Well, that cuts out the idea that some of these studios are having of trying to keep someone's likeness and just CGI animating, combining with AI. If you
Yeah.
don't have a visual arts, team, you can't do that. Like
Yeah.
it completely takes that idea off the table.
Hmm.
Which once again, I'm going to keep talking about how disgusting that is.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep bringing it up because
Yeah.
it astonishes me that they're just like, yeah, you're going to like this, right? It's
Yeah.
like, no. Um,
Now, obviously, it's different if they're doing it with consent.
yes, dealing with
Yeah.
consent is a bit different, but one of the issues here is that they're they're frequently going to people that are green around the gills,
Yeah.
that are desperate to just like maybe they
Hmm.
just came out of high school
Oh yeah.
and maybe they did some theater acting and
Hmm.
they want to do this big impression. I think they're doing it largely on false pretenses. So even if you
Yes.
get your consent,
Hmm.
if you don't know what they're actually
Yeah.
offering you,
Yeah.
then it's
I
gonna
know
go over
they've
your head.
been a lot of the background actors just so they can duplicate them
Yeah.
for large scenes and stuff like that. Yeah. No. No one. I don't think anyone outside of a you know administration of a movie studio thinks that that's a great idea. But on the flip side, no one is gonna go after um, anyone for Carrie Fisher's daughter or any of her family for having her likeness be used in Rise of Skywalker.
Skywalker. Yeah.
You know, as much as everyone disagrees with using the, we're all going to admit that there's certain points where we're okay with it.
Hmm. Yeah. A lot of it comes down to. I mean, well, some of it comes down to legality,
Yeah,
but I would argue most of it comes with respect in
yeah,
application.
hmm, absolutely.
Because everything is a specific instance. Like one that is controversial, I would argue would be more controversial. More people saw this movie is in the movie Flash.
Hmm.
If you don't know,
I don't. I did. I haven't seen it.
the thing I'm about to tell you doesn't like spoil the plot. Really, it's
Hmm.
just like like two big, a few cameos of like characters that show up from another universe.
Okay. Oh,
They
this is. I know what you're talking. I know what you're talking about. The
okay.
Superman ones.
Christopher Reeve
The George Reeves
and
one.
George Reeves.
Yes.
George Reeves is the one that's more controversial when you look
Yeah.
into it because he may have killed himself because he hated only being known as
Yeah.
Superman and all that pressure.
Hmm.
So that's a whole nother can of worms, ethically, if you are able to recreate his form.
Yeah.
And I'm just like thinking to myself, I'm like, just replay a shot from the TV show. I'm just like, you're going out of your
Yeah.
way to make this way more complicated and way more morally gray. Like, just show a frame from the TV show. Boom, you're
Yeah.
done. But some of these studios have a bit of hubris. Like
Yeah.
they kind of think like, oh,
Hmm.
we know best. We know what to do. We know what the people will love.
Yeah. And everyone wants to one up each other. So everyone wants to get their VFX guys to one up the previous one. So
Yeah. But maybe people will complain less about visual effects in these big productions if you
Yeah.
gave more time to these people. You respected them. Usually some of our best work is ones where we are not on crunch time.
Yeah.
And it seems like every production I hear about, the visual effects artists are constantly on crunch time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's sad. I hope that I don't want to say I don't want this strike to go longer, but if it means that more people get what they're just due,
Yeah.
it was worth in the end.
Yeah. We want it to go exactly as long as it needs to and no longer.
Yeah. Like, no one, I mean, only someone like Bob Iger is okay with, like several thousand people like not be able to afford their homes.
Mm-hmm.
We care.
Yeah.
And part of it is like, we're not rich, but like I feel like we are empathetic. even if
Mm-hmm.
we had some money on us.
Yeah.
And if I had some money, like if I was well off, yeah, I'll give us some money. And
Yeah.
it's like, here, take it. Um, like, like it's not just the writers and actors who are suffering; it's also
Mm-hmm.
everyone that lives under their homes.
Yeah.
Any like grandparents that stay with them, little kids, all of them depend on this industry.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah. Anyway, back to Lando.
All right.
I'm yeah, you forgot about it. I'm excited that they're working on it.
Yes.
Um, you know, uh, freaking Don Glover is a just a magnum opus of different talents.
Mm-hmm.
Rapping, acting, directing,
Yeah.
comedy. He knows it, and so I have no doubt in my mind that he will produce something that will just be like, this is really good. And also, it helps that he's Star Wars nerd.
Yeah.
Um, like I don't think that's necessarily a prerequisite because you're constantly like you have Pablo Hidalgo on speed dial. You can ask him a
Oh yeah.
question about how this works.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Pablo Hidalgo and his story group team, they're also really a part of the production of this Outlaws game, which I'm really been appreciating what I've been seeing of this project.
Yeah. I'm excited for it personally.
hmm I love seeing new characters. I love the idea that this is true, like an actual open world Star Wars game, which we haven't had. It's insane for how many
Mm-hmm.
decades Star Wars games have been coming out, almost since the Genesis. Not the game system Genesis,
Yeah.
the initial rise of the Star Wars franchise. Um, and we haven't had just a fully open world type of thing, in the vein of like Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. Well, I
Uh,
can tell you the one of the most influential video games um, was I was 13 years old when the original X-wing came out,
mhm.
and I had to rebuild my PC in 1993 to get it to play on my PC.
Was it? Wait, what year did it come out?
The original X-wing came out in 1993. I remember
Okay,
going
so
to Electronics Boutique or Babbage's, whichever one it was, to go buy it, and then bringing it home and finding that it wouldn't run on my computer.
uh, I'm trying to think of the appropriate terminology. Was it fat? Was it tubular?
Yeah, it was totally too. It was super rad. It was awesome.
Uh, Grunge baby Mondo.
Okay, yeah, you're going a little too far.
I mean, I can make fun of any era. Okay,
Yeah,
it's not just going back to that time period.
yeah.
Um,
And then after, if you really want to get back in that era, right after X-wing is when they came out with TIE Fighter, which then brings in the first actual acting of Grand Admiral Thrawn with
hmm.
his old school other pronunciation of Coruscant, where in the video
Now,
game they actually pronounce it Coruscant.
so how did they animate him?
Uh, I mean, it's like 8-bit pixels.
Okay, like I was just like thinking to myself, like there's three modes they had back in the day. You have just triangles upon triangles.
Yeah, no.
You had still image,
Mhm.
uh, and you also had live actors.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like that. That was the live actors they kind of used in like Rebel Assault was which came out in like 94, and that was kind of weird the way it was because it was like super pixelized live people, but he
Hmm.
was just straight up animation and only in the cutscenes. But it was
Okay,
pretty much just straight up like drawn on a computer animation.
all right, whatever works.
Hey,
Like they had limitations for the time, and now it's a It's
Yeah.
a nostalgic aesthetic
Mm-hmm.
you can look back on.
Yep.
Um, Now, I really haven't asked this question. I think I'm going to start asking it with new guests. What are some Star Wars characters that you stand?
That I my
I'm not saying your favorite, but what's some characters that you care so much about that maybe not a lot of people do?
All right. I gotta say, and this is gonna be a random one, but Snap Wexley. You know,
Okay, yeah, I
and
like that.
that especially from the newer generations. Whether like if you from being introduced to him in the Aftermath books,
Hmm.
and then halfway through Force Awakens, you realize that Greg Grunberg is the same person.
Hmm.
Uh, I think Greg did a great job, and I really think it was the most tragic thing that Star Wars has ever done by killing off Snap 10 seconds before Wedge shows back up.
Oh,
It's kind of messed up to have him die like literally like 10 or 15 seconds before his stepdad comes on screen to come help him.
so you must have been devastated just seeing him crash
Yeah, just seeing him
Let's go.
crash, and I'm like, I'm sad as it is. And then here comes Lando, and you see Wedge on the quad gun in the Millennium Falcon. I'm just like, oh no, he doesn't know.
Do you think they should have made his death, you know, a little more lamented on, or at least a little more heroic?
I mean, I think if they was going to kill him off, they could have separated it a little more.
Uh,
Whether he died slightly earlier, whether Wedge wasn't right there a few seconds later. That kind of tugged at my heartstrings when I saw that happen. I really got a little choked up in the theater when
yeah.
when Wedge shows up, and I'm like, oh no, he doesn't know, because he's just gonna. You just imagine him like when everything goes south, and then him trying to find his stepson and make sure he's okay, and find out that he just didn't make it in time. That's
Mhm.
got to be killing him. That has to be killing him.
I like his not like burst your belly like jokes, but he's very slight jokes.
Yeah.
In Force Awakens, in Rise of Skywalker, uh, like his trying to pretend like everything's good to Leia,
Yeah.
Rise Skywalker. Him in the deleted scene of
Mm-hmm.
Force Awakens saying, whether space is there, talking about hyperspace or something like
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
There's like little cute things. I know in the comics, they explain that his squadron, aside from Black Leader, who's supposed to be
Yeah.
Poe, were on a different mission. And in a Star Wars annual, like we actually get like kind of a funeral for him.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be a very direct, like kind of side chapter to the Poe Dameron series that ran
Mm-hmm.
for a couple of years because it has the same writer, has the same artist.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think Phil Noto might be like top 5 comic illustrators for Star Wars. I don't know if that's going to be controversial to the people, but I think he's one of the best.
Yeah.
I think he's leagues better than the guy who is notorious for just tracing images.
Yeah. Some of those are a little creepy. There's the uncanny valley in those.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Where
uncanny
it's
valley when it comes
like
to
it
that.
really just looks like they
Because he
ran.
uses frames from the movie, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, well, just repeating something that I've seen hundreds of times in a different shot where this person is now wearing like a cloak now.
Yeah. It's literally like they just took one of the characters' faces from one of the movies and just ran it through a filter to make it
Yeah,
look like a comic.
it's one of the big issues I have with not necessarily the interiors of the books, but a lot of the Legends novels were, even for the ones that were painted, like they're
Mm-hmm.
just using frames from the movie, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, all I can see is that one shot of that movie when I look at it.
Yeah.
And like as soon as the advent of like the '90s, late '90s, early 2000s, where they're just like, oh, we can just Photoshop everything. They went insane, and everything had like a weird filter. Everything had fades in it. and like it was just production stills.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my big roast of Star Wars media is the laziness of some of the covers.
Yeah.
I think they have a much better track record now. I think they go to a little more abstract than
Yeah.
they do. They actually get like professional painters that do other things than just portraiture.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and of course they have some characters that have no uh, something based on film to depict them with. Like everything from the High Republic. Well, those are completely original characters that have never been on
Yeah.
film or TV. So that works a lot in their favor.
Yet. Acolyte.
Yeah.
We know that Vernestra Rowe is going to be a character in Acolyte. So I think that's so far the only character that we know from the High Republic. That's
We'll see if they're able to avoid temptation.
Yeah.
in cover making, because even though it's something that a lot of people may not think about, like it like people do judge books based on covers, and it does help sell them, and it's an art form, just like how people took a lot of pride in producing physically painted movie posters.
Yeah.
And then everything just became fill in random heads
yeah.
with Photoshop after a while. Like it became like a dying art form of just painting film posters. Did you stop bobbing your head?
I mean, thankfully it seems to be coming back a little bit. Maybe not as much as everyone would love, but it seems to be coming back to an extent.
Yeah, and like one more press by is like when they really show off their creative skills. Like, you know, a great example of this is the Jaws poster.
Mm-hmm.
There's no recognizable character at all on the cover, but it's just a woman, and you got a shark who's huge.
Yes.
You can bite her at any point. That sells the movie better than just having, you know, whatever actors were in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And like a shark in the background.
Yeah. I mean, because if you look at that movie, the people, the main characters of Jaws, I know this is going off on a weird tangent. I was talking about this at work with some guys the other day, that in that movie, Roy Scheider is like 2 years older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows how people back then just didn't age well. And that the character that played his wife is actually like 3 years younger than me, but she looks significantly older than me. I mean, to me, looking back, I mean, you guys probably, anyone watching you look at me like, who the hell is this old guy think he's talking about? He didn't look great either. But it's just one of those things that you see, like, you know, I don't know whether it's just people use sunscreen or whatever it is nowadays, but it's funny when you say that.
I think part of it is genetics. Part of it is like, you know, some people in Hollywood, they do drugs. That can be a factor for some people. Some people, like, they just don't have what makes them look great. Like, think about this. Like, you know Snoop Dogg, right?
Yes.
You know Pharrell.
Mm-hmm.
1 year difference between them.
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg looks at least 15 years older than him. Like, at least. So, yeah, it sometimes just works out of the way. I mean, hell, during the filming of Last Crusade, Sean Connery was about 11 years older than Harrison Ford.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Just 11 years older. But it doesn't look like it when you watch the movie. You just say, oh, yeah, I can believe he's 20 years older minimum. No, not even 11 years.
Yeah. But, I mean, you look at Pharrell versus Snoop, they obviously grew up very different lifestyles. You know, Pharrell grew up by you in Virginia Beach.
Yep.
It looks like. Which I don't know how Pharrell's like childhood was, but yeah. I mean, Snoop Dogg grew up in Long Beach and was a gang member. You know, he lived a hard life. He's been to jail. He's been to prison. We all know how
Killed a man.
much, you know,
We know that for a
all
fact.
that, yeah. And then all that smoke ain't good for your skin. So it is what it is. He's definitely lived a much harder lifestyle than Pharrell has,
Hmm.
as far as I'm aware. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Snoop Dogg did live a harder life. I know
Yeah.
Pharrell did live in an impoverished area, but it was not as bad as what Snoop went through.
Yeah.
Even in the height of, you know, like crime in Virginia Beach, it was never
Hmm.
as bad as Crenshaw
Yeah.
or Long Beach or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
mean, you
yeah,
look at I pulled up just because really I'm looking at Pharrell's, Wikipedia. You know, he was in the school band and stuff like that, and went to college before he dropped out to do music.
yeah,
That's not what Snoop was going through at the
no,
time. You know, by the time when Pharrell's at Northwestern University, Snoop was probably in jail.
yeah. Um, Now, we talked about character you stand that maybe a lot of people may not care about as much. Is there a character you think is just overrated in the fandom?
Overrated.
Yeah, like you think that they get maybe a little too much praise. Like you don't think they're that hot.
Okay, I'm going to put a caveat here because I don't think it is anymore, but I
Mm-hmm.
would have said Legends Boba Fett.
Mm,
Because when you went into some of the early, like the old school books and even stuff like that, he was just like. But I think after the reboot and even after bringing him into the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, I have a much renewed love for not only him but Temuera than I did in my earlier life. He was always the coolest guy, but they kind of, especially some of the old books, kind of just took that and run with that. It was like, okay, I'm writing a Star Wars book. I need to put Boba Fett in here to do stuff.
I think he. If you look at everything he was in the books and the comics, there was a lot of inconsistency.
Yes.
Obviously, there was a lot of retcons where at one point he was supposed to be Justin Mariel, and
Yeah.
then Justin Mariel was a different person, and then they had to fold in the retcon about him being a clone of his dad, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't know about that. Uh, and he fell into the Sarlacc pit, the same Sarlacc pit
Yeah.
twice. Like he comes out to just go back in like a day. It's stupid. But
Yeah.
there's other books that were just like, he's the most badass thing ever, and no one
Yeah.
can defeat him. And it's like, are we sure about that?
Yeah. He's got cool armor, and everyone wanted to put them in their whatever book, comic, anything, just to have him in there, it seemed. So, yeah, he kind of went, but I want to add the caveat that was Legends
Yeah,
Boba Fett.
yeah. The only thing from Legends that still holds is his two appearances in the original trilogy,
Yeah.
and his arc in the Clone Wars cartoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's only things that are in both camps.
Yep. Not
Um,
even him riding a mythosaur in the holiday special is canon.
but there's aspects of the holiday special that are canon.
Yes. Yep.
Um, so, is there anything you wanted to ask or bring up before we get to the glut shido of this episode?
No, I'm really looking forward to who to learn about your newest glup of the day is.
Okay. You ever heard of Alcida Alka?
Nope.
Okay.
I know
Well,
you go some deep dives. I know so.
well, I guarantee you have seen this character. Don't worry, I got a
Mm-hmm.
image handy for you.
Oh
I got another one.
yes,
Okay.
the fish nun.
Okay, it's one specific fish
Yes.
nun. So Vima Lanai, main patron of a long generation of Acto, who saw Ray when she shot through the hut.
Mm-hmm.
She is the one who scales a finger lip garpin fish for a daily meal. She's the one scaling the fish.
Yeah.
She appears again when Ray cuts the rock on the island and it falls and it destroys a wheelbarrow. She's one of the Lanai who looks back in dismay at
Yeah.
Ray. We know in the book novelization of Last Jedi, uh, she spoke to Luke, uh, uh, seemingly in the way they speak, not
Mm-hmm.
in basic or what we call English. And Luke was just like, "Oh, she's my niece, whatever,"
Yeah.
and she wasn't. She didn't believe him. Um, and apparently, their alien race was confused why he would want to live there, but they would still like sometimes wash his clothes
Yeah.
because he was just mostly by himself. He wasn't really bothering anybody. Um, Now, she also appears in a deleted scene, and it's probably one of my favorite deleted scenes for Last Jedi. Um, do you know about the final test Luke makes for Rey?
No, not off the top of my head.
Okay, there's a deleted scene where this goes into it. It's also in the book,
Mm-hmm.
where Luke was like, "Hey, those caretakers are going to be in danger because a bunch of marauders are coming by boats." And Ray's just like, "Oh shit!" And she starts just running with her saber, and she
Yeah.
goes across where a village for the female Lene are hanging out. She busts through and she cuts a giant like bone or wooden barrier with a lightsaber, and she sees that the men that came over are not marauders. They're just male Lene. They're having a festival and they're dancing, and we see Alcida Alka dancing. She's startled, so is everyone else. She starts swinging around a tool, like a wooden tool, trying to invite Ray into their dance.
Mm-hmm.
And Ray starts slowly swinging around her lightsaber like a glow stick.
Okay.
And then they continue
So Raver
dancing.
Ray.
Yes. Ray encounters Luke, and she's like,
Yes.
"You lied to me." And Luke somehow Luke got there real fast, and he's drunk, and he's just he's like, "I told you, I warned you something was going to happen. Nothing did. Your first response was to go into violence. Violence is the way of the Jedi because that's all they know how to deal with something." And that was supposed to be his final lesson. And after
Yeah.
that, we get the rest of the movie where she has the hand connection with
Yeah.
Kylo Ren. But yeah, it was cut out. Part of me wishes that it was still in it, but I understand why for time Brian Johnson probably wanted to cut it out, even though it's
Yeah.
meaty with content.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so Alcida is basically the matriarch of the fish nuns.
She's the Octo Mother Superior.
Yeah, pretty much. She is the big mama of the family household. Um, yeah. So, what do you think about Alcida Alka?
I, she is that person that you always saw on screen. You're like, I'm sure there's a backstory, and I'm now happy to have learned it.
Oh yeah, don't worry. Like all of the Lanai, as far as I know, have names.
Yeah.
It's a little harder to find on Wikipedia, but you just do a little more digging and you'll find it.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you want to announce to the people? Maybe follow your Twitter, I guess.
Well, I would like to say that right now, my least favorite of all the Star Wars aliens are the Geonosians.
Okay.
And that's just being because I just found out yesterday that I have a nest of yellow jackets in my backyard that I discovered while mowing the lawn, and I got like stung like 12 times. You should have seen it. My wife and kids are laughing, wondering what's going on as they see me flailing around and then jumping into the pool fully clothed. But they didn't think it was as funny this morning when our dog when the I guess disturbed them and they swarmed him and wound up having to go to the vet there. So I am not a fan of any insect-like creature at this point.
Yeah,
so.
it's always funny when it happens to Dad, but as soon as it happens to the dog,
yeah. So I'm not saying that what the Empire did to the Geonosians was right. That was wrong. You should not do that.
Mm-hmm.
Genocide is never an option, never a good thing. But I kind of don't like them right
now. What we'll say is that I have a theory about Geonosians.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know I'm the man of many theories when it comes to Star Wars.
Yes, you are.
I talked about how...
Is Rey part Geonosian, you're going to tell me?
No, she's not part Geonosian. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Mr. Fennessey. What we'll say is that I talked about how Star Wars uses aliens as metaphors for people.
Yes.
Like, not just individual people, like Lot Dodd being like stand-in for actual politician, but aliens are supposed to be representative of different civilizations of people and different races and religions. Like, a lot of people have talked about the racialization of Jawas and Tusken Raiders. A lot of people talked about Gungans over the years. Watto is a contentious name.
Yes.
I would argue Geonosians are part of this. I think Geonosians are supposed to be Mesoamericans.
I don't think I ever personally thought of it that way, but it makes sense as soon as you say it.
Yeah, because when I started thinking back onto how George Lucas wrote the Mesoamerican remnants in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where they literally come out of the walls like the Geonosians do to attack the white characters, and they have rituals of sacrifice.
I think you're onto something.
And they also, you ever thought about what they wear? They wear like loincloth tunics with gems and gold.
Yeah.
Like, if you told a cartoonist to draw like an Aztec or a Mayan, they'll probably draw them like that.
Yeah.
And it's no surprise that a movie like Secrets of the Aztec was a big influence on George Lucas in creating Han Solo, because the main character is very similar. Wears a hat, archaeologist, rogue, all of that. So I think that was in the back of his mind while producing these creatures.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say George Lucas is like a irredeemable bigot. I'm not going to say that at all. But I
think he made some decisions that, looking back, were not the best.
Yeah.
I don't know that he did them purposely. It may have been something inherent. But
some of them, I think, are harder to ignore with the influence of why he produced characters. Like Jabba was supposed to wear a fez, and he smoked a hookah.
Okay.
And his building is in the shape of a mosque.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a harem of dancers that wear metal and silk lingerie. Like, to me, none of that is by accident. It's a trope.
Yes.
From
absolutely
old books from 1800s and movies from 1900s. Like, it is a trope of the Middle Eastern concept of Orientalism in art. Something that you could see in the movie Aladdin, which deals with a lot of stereotypes.
Yes.
And I think part of it is like it was not made by people of those cultures, and they're going off older, worse stereotypes. So these are the
Yes.
diet versions of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think George grew up in a time where he adopted these kinds of stereotypes, and he just diluted it by making it into a metaphor.
Yeah.
I don't think he hates any of these groups, but I do think he's participating in a little bit of white ignorance.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. I love George. Don't agree with every decision he makes.
Yeah.
I do think he could have taken more time to understand the power of metaphors in art, because sometimes metaphors can be very strong and like help people to realize oppression. Like Avatar are very clearly supposed to be Native Americans.
Yes.
The blue aliens being taken over by the big industrialized military.
Yeah.
The metaphor is very blatant, and I would argue, I think the second one does way better with the metaphor, and kind of puts aside the white savior complex.
Yeah, kind of does that, and instead of going, it leans more towards the Polynesian than the Native American.
Yeah, but it
does it a little
Native
better.
Fighting against the colonizer, and
Yeah.
I think they benefit a lot from focusing on just the fighting and the family, rather than oh look, we have literally a man disguising himself as one of us, and now he accepts us. Like it's a cross between Dances with Wolves and Fern Gully.
Yes, that was what I was gonna say. They always called it when the first one came out. It was always referred to as Dances and Wolves in Space.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we covered some interesting ground. We talked about Lando. We talked about Alcida Alka. We talked about the efficacy of bringing back dead actors.
Yeah.
But yeah, like once again, if you want to watch more of me, I should be having another video out soon with another guest. I'm happy that we were actually able to record this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's insane. It's real.
Yes.
It's not a figment of our imagination. But yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Audience, thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.
Yes.
Love y'all.